So from here, what do you think is the future of Nollywood?
Total world domination. And I'm not saying this as a joke.
This is Nollywood Fellow, a channel where I take you through Nollywood films. And today I'm extremely delighted because I have an immensely talented man over here with me. He is a screenwriter, director, producer from Nollywood. Please welcome Waltbanger Taylaur. What do I call you? Waltbanger?
Walter or Waltbanger or Walt. I'm easy either way.
So how do you have such an easy name for a Nigerian?
Well, maybe it's not so easy to know my middle name. So.
Oh, okay. What is it?
Which is Adawaiki.
Okay. Now I feel like I'm talking to a Nigerian.
Good.
All right. So Walter, you've had quite an illustrious career. You've worked on BBC documentaries. You've worked on reality TV. You've worked on series. You've worked on movies. So would you just like to take us a bit through your journey? I mean, I hope I don't sound like an HR person when I say this, but yeah, would you like to take us through your journey and what it's been like, what you've been up to, how it's all started? How it all started, maybe?
Okay, how it all started. Well, there are two types of stories.
Mm-hmm.
How it all started from a writing point of view was kind of like I was in university in London. Being a son of an accountant, you have to do the business course. So I was doing business, but all my friends were on the media course, sort of thing.
Okay.
And a very, very intellectual bunch of friends, especially when it comes to film. They're the kind of guys that, they'll call you up and say, let's go watch a black and white Czechoslovakian film. I'm like, why the hell? What's that for? So we're always, they're always talking about films and that kind of stuff. And one of them was on a film course.
All right.
He was doing one of his assignments and just asked me, you know what? We tend to have a lot of good ideas. And let's brainstorm. And after a while, after we sort of brainstormed, he was like, whoa, maybe you should write one of your scripts. You should write a script. And I was like,
wow.
Yeah. And then it was, I think that was the era when Tarantino was just coming through and that kind of stuff, Rodriguez. And that. So it was really sort of like buying the book, reading Tarantino's book, and all the independent filmmakers, Roger Avery, Nate Mann, all that sort of. And literally, that's kind of how it was. I just picked up a book, read it, went to the store, bought the same ring binders, bought the pens, started writing. And this was handwritten, not even typed.
Wow.
So I still have my original manuscript. Unfortunately, that script that I wrote eventually got made into a feature film called Get Lucky, which was produced by Universal and Gateway Films, and it was Atlas Independent and distributed by So then I kind of knew, okay, maybe I kind of have a forte. Then I was into my crime thing, so it was quite easy to sort of think about, film noirs and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then I went back to Nigeria to do my U Corps, which we all do sort of, and studied as an accountant, set up as an accountant, and I just kind of find out like, every time, my boss is coming in, sort of presses windows and I'm trying to look at my spreadsheet, and then when they're gone, and I was like, you know what, maybe this is not for me, sort of thing. And so that's kind of what sort of gave me the impetus. I mean, when I came back to that, when I went back, I started doing a little bit of music videos.
Okay.
So it gave me my little bit of a style. So I did a short film called The Wages, which kind of won the AMVC. So it was the best short film in Africa.
All right. So which year was this? Sorry, which year was this?
2014.
2014, all right.
So and for me, that's probably one of my favorite pieces of work because it was when I wasn't it was when I was just being real and just being my natural self. Then once I got into it, it was like, she was like, we don't want too much blood, we don't want too much this. So my style sort of started coming down a little bit. So you kind of have me, this half-breed sort of daytime soap opera thing-ish going on, which is also something I tended to involve in my style. And I found out when I sort of watched it with the Nigerian audience, they were like, oh, wow, this is really good. But then they were like, I'm not sure if I really like this film, but I know it's really good. So there's also a producer. So at the end of the day, you do stuff with your own money too. Right. Making a little film is more important than, you take a step back a little bit. So I kind of thought, okay, you know what? And I noticed in the short film, there was a section when the audience went, and they were loving it. And then all of a sudden it just gets darker and darker. And by the end of it, so I'm like, you know what? That first 15 minutes, maybe you should do more of that, and then maybe a little sprinkle of the dark bits at the end. So that's kind of how my kind of style evolved.
You've spoken about a lot of these elements in your movies, be it the noir element or the gritty element. So would I be wrong if I say that you've been a game changer with Nollywood?
I wouldn't say that, depending on who's listening. But I feel I have contributed a lot to the things that are going on in Nollywood. A little thing which we have this thing where we don't try and give people enough credit and that kind of stuff. So unless you say out yourself, people don't really know. I mean, when, for example, sort of cliffhangers. When I first came and did my series, we didn't really do cliffhangers. It was really tune in and they show you a little clip of what's happening next week, and it's tune. And because I've been such an avid fan of 24, when I was younger, one of my flatmates ended up being in the school. So I'd watched it, and that was what was gripping. So I said, you know what? This series, I'm going to try and do cliffhangers every single episode. Because even when 24 came out, so we didn't really. That was what was really cool about 24. And then from that point on, if you watch most Hollywood series or even like cliffhangers, there's no those sort of things, and then also sort of like the crime comedy sort of thing. When we were told we had to do comedy and slapstick, and I was like, okay, the comedy angle I kind of understand where it is, but I don't want to do this buffoonery or that kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I like film noirs, I like crime. Okay, so then let's go back to the old sort of, crime capers I used to watch, and I like we called it sort of black humor.
So do you think it's an interesting time for Nollywood right now?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting time for Nollywood. Like I was getting on board, I think we've been slightly misrepresented in the past, simply because it's usually the people or the productions that have the biggest marketing budget. People tend to see the most films. So from 3, 4, 5, 4 years ago, we've had some really, really great films which just haven't come out. So now people have more sort of access to getting the films out. People are going to see, what we're really about. So I think it's a very, very interesting time. And it's great for us because we get to have a chance to do different types of films.
So is there an evident increase in a global audience for Nollywood right now?
It's hard to say, it's hard to say. The social media tends to suggest, because we get a lot of comments and we get a lot of feedback and interaction from those sort of angles. But then again, we kind of feel that Nollywood has been out there for a long while, and there's a lot of people who have watched it, who enjoy it. It's only when you hear stories, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, I love it, and they can tell you all the stars. And you're like, okay. Or you're in South Africa, and they tell you, I watched this film, or they ask me questions. So yeah, but granted, I think it's starting to break into more, or the tougher markets, sort of like the Americans, the UK, Hollywood, and India, and stuff. So it's that kind of, I think, and for us, I think that's very good because there's also a share of ideas. I mean, I always feel that we always have something in common, and by telling those little bits of the story, we can share a little bit of things that aren't common, but then there's a thread that we can all sort of hang on to. I mean, there's a lot of, I watch quite a few Bollywood films as well, but there was one I particularly that's always stuck in my mind, and it was a film called Ugly, and Ugly, and it's not your typical.
What's it spelled? How do you spell it? Sorry.
Ugly, Ugly.
Ugly. Oh, it's a lovely movie. Yes, yes. Anurag
And
Kashyap.
that was, yeah, and that
Yeah,
was, I was just like, whoa, why do they have these kind of, because we're so used to
exactly.
being fed. And so it's the same sort of thing. And if you were someone who I was listening, oh, this looks interesting. So I think that's the kind of way we're going. Obviously, with what's his name, RRR just came out and just blew everyone out of the water. Then you're like, okay, we've arrived. So in fact, I think they do it better than Hollywood what they're doing there. That kind of look. So we're hoping to emulate to that point and get to that point. Yeah.
All right. So now talking about you, you have had quite an interesting run. Like you got two Netflix releases in like a span of a month or so, Jolly Roger
Yeah.
and A Sunday Affair. So how's it been having back-to-back worldwide releases, and how's the response been?
No, it's been good. It's been good. I mean, I don't having two of them on the charts at the same time was quite reassuring as well that we're doing the right thing and there's space. I mean, the responses have been very good. Not, I kind of expected people would be, the target audience. I'm very target audience based or focused.
Correct.
So you're never going to please everybody, especially Nigerians, because we're so diverse anyway. So from different languages, different social standings, different there's so many things. So if you try and please all of them, you're gonna come a cropper. But from the target audience specifically, it really hit home. And even for both films, and quite a few of my friends, even from here, from the UK, from different, oh, really love your film, I'm like, okay. You get old school friends calling you up, you're into the years, oh, we watched, and then both of them. So I see it sort of going further than my other films, and I guess it's because it has that tag, you've got two films on Netflix, and then, one was number one, and went to like 18 different countries. That's the Sunday Affair was really, really traveled. I mean, it got to number 9 in the UK. It went to, I think it was top number 1 in like 6 countries or 5 countries, then traveled to actually another 18 countries and that kind of. So that's for Nollywood. That's something that is fantastic. I mean, people received it well. It wasn't the case of the film's got there and everyone's sort of like ducking and hiding and people sort of hiding their passports and saying, I'm not from Nigeria. I don't know who these people are. So that's reassuring and that's good for us.
So talking about A Sunday Affair, that was pretty different from your other movies. So how is it doing an out and out romantic drama without any grit or noir or any of those dark elements?
I tell you, there was a lot of long faces and sort of raised eyebrows from among my friends. But I'm like, I'm like, yeah, it's not a romantic comedy, but it's a drama. So I like that sort of thing. And it was something, and not that I listened to them, but I wanted to do something slightly different. But it wasn't, when I say it's different, for me, it's all my films have romance in it. So I try to explain to people like, it's the fabric of it, even though it's just a film that didn't have any guns in, which is what I was saying. But yeah, so it was good. I mean, what I liked about it was it didn't follow sort of the traditional sort of happy ending, sort of, so to speak, or it had a little bit of darker elements to it, even though we try to dress it up like this Valentine's movie.
And you're also behind one of Africa's most successful series, if I could say so, Castle and Castle. Would that be an understatement? Or would that be an overstatement if I said it's?
These sort of accolades, I'm not one for those ones. But if you say it is, then I'll take your word for it. Just email me and send me the screen grab so I can make a poster.
Sure thing.
Yeah, I did the second season, which was sort of slightly bigger, or should I say we went slightly more than just the court case. They wanted to tell more stories, the personal stories within the film, within the series. So that was kind of again what interested me in it, rather than just being a regular sort of this thing happens, and then law and disorder sort of thing. So yeah, that was very interesting. Really, really heavy shoots. When I say heavy shoot, it was a really, really heavy shoot. But I think we managed to pull it off. I mean, that's the other thing I think about Nollywood is as we get bigger, it allows us a little bit more time to shoot the work we need to do. I mean, we're always judged on our work, but people don't realize that we shoot it in half the time that other films we're being judged with, and it's obviously the fact of money and that kind of stuff. But once the better or the average Nollywood filmmaker has the time he wants to make the film or his project is, then all of a sudden I think people will really, really, really see the talents that we have.
So all these challenges you've been mentioning, is that also a reason why most of your movies are limited to a couple of locations? Like most of your movies, I don't know if it's a correct observation, but I've seen that there are like 4 or 5 locations and you're done with the movie. I mean, A Sunday Affair is a huge exception in that manner, but otherwise I guess it's like, be it Jolly Roger.
What we call that within a group of friends, we call it the Mayweather style. So you have the Anthony Joshua, which is the heavyweight.
All right.
Big, and then you have sort of like Floyd Mayweather, which is a sort of lighter weight, but it still packs a massive punch, and he's still a champion and that kind of. And because it allows us to tell a little bit stronger stories, rather than spreading yourself thin, and trying to confine it. And also, it's also a thing I like to do as well with something like the claustrophobic film. Again, sort of my education came from the old, independent American films. Independent, sort of. So you have, it's like you have films about, people in the house, having dinner, and then conversation would come around, and so those sort of elements we try to put in, because, like I said, it's one thing trying to do something big, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this kind of doesn't work, and it kills the whole film. So it's something that now, obviously, now we're starting to have a bigger budget again. Sunday Affair was one that had a bigger budget. The next project I'm going to have a lot. I like the claustrophobic.
Yeah, another interesting thing with your movies for me has been the naming of the movies, be it Jolly Roger or Catch.er. So why was that? And how do you pronounce GBOMO Express?
Bomo Express.
Bomo?
Yeah, Bomo. Okay. So the G is almost silent, but it's a bit like John. It's almost silent, but it's
right.
Takes a different shape in the mouth, but Bomo, which kind of means kidnap or kidnapper. We're kids.
Okay.
Kids. Bomo and everyone running to the house. Sort of. It's things they used to scare kids with. Don't. Eat your vegetables. Bomo will catch you and that kind of stuff. So it was something that in fact, I lost an investor based on that name, because they wanted me to change it to something more non-Swedish sort of thing, because we have Deadly Pursuit or Deadly Danger, or so. And I was like, no, I kind of want to have it's kind of like me. I kind of want to have a Nigerian or non-Nigerian name and an English name sort of thing. So it's like Chongqing Express, sort of thing. So those were the kind of things I took elements from. So obviously, if you went to an international festival, they'd get express bit, but they'd say, oh, curious, it's Bomo bit. And funny enough, it's now become sort of a saying in Nigeria among the kids, like kidnapping. It's Bomo Express. And most people don't realize that. No, Bomo Express is the film. So now all of a sudden, whenever they want to say things, like Bomo Express, and it's or if you go to a nightclub and you see a nice girl, and you care if this guy wants, Bomo Express. Leave me alone. Don't buy me a drink. He's trying to, they have different slangs for it, but I'm quite happy that it's kind of made it into sort of like the cult language, so to speak.
Interesting.
Then you go on Twitter and you just go on. I'm like, oh, it's talking about my film. No, it's got nothing to do with my film. I'm using the word for it. Kashyap was also it kind of was an old childhood. It's what we call tag.
All right, got it.
Kashyap. but then I kind of used a play on words, catch her killer, because the film was really more about sort of getting justice for people who don't get justice, and that's kind of where it came from. And then Jolly Roger, many reasons why it's called Jolly Roger, and so I put a few of them up on the opening card. Sort of Roger being sort of take bribes, or Roger and someone giving someone a bribe, or that kind of inducement. Roger, the UK slang for Roger, which is like sex and that kind of stuff. But then Jolly Roger is also the pirate flag.
The pirate flag, right.
Which kind of symbolizes the modern day pirates. So, you have the highway and you get stopped.
All right.
You come into your ship. But that's something I need people to work out. I didn't want to throw it out there. So it's that kind of thing. And then there are levels what we try and do, but without it being in the face. And like I said, we grew up sort of being cryptic, sort of, and then let people work. If they work it out, they work. If they don't work it out, it's okay.
So you work with all the biggest stars in Nollywood. So I'm going to be a bit biased over here. How was it working with Richard Mofe-Damijo?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a lot of, I would say all the biggest ones, but I've worked with a fair share. So there are a lot of big actors in Hollywood, and so don't don't get me in trouble here.
Okay.
RMD is the boss, so he's a I wouldn't say veteran, because that always seems to have a sort of, he's very, very good. He's very disciplined. I remember we were shooting, we had the location, maybe like 30 minutes left in the location, or I can't remember how long it was left. And we still had to do 3 scenes, like 3 real scenes of it. And it was either we lose the location or, we did. And literally I went to him and one of my stars from Johnny Roger, which was Daniel. And I said, listen, I don't know, we got to shoot this one, and we're trying to pick which scene is probably going to be the most important one, that kind of stuff. And they were like, unless we try and run them, back to back. They were like, give me the script, let me see. And these are like 3-page sheets.
Wow.
Should we give it a try? Let's give it a try. I'm like, produce, let's go. We might get. And he ran that scene, outside the building, coming in, going to, and now I was like, okay, now we see where the experience comes from. Now we see why. So yeah, no, it's those sort of things that, when you have someone who's very seasoned, and very good at what he does, you may not see it when you have to pay the big dollars, but when it stops your co-production from going down the pan, you kind of think, okay, that's why these kind of guys are where they are. So 2 people I always wanted to work with, fortunately, Ramsey and Genevieve. There were 2 people I'd always like really. So I was very fortunate to actually get Ramsey to be in my first one, in Woman Express,
right?
So to speak. And we went to a festival. We drank. We had one of my friends who played the Philo character, that's Bayro. So he introduced me, and basically showed Ramsey my short film. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, we're trying to get you, in this film, sort of thing. I was like, oh, okay, we'll see, we'll think about, And then, we now spent the whole rest of the festival just having fun. I mean, I remember there was one night we camped. We were drinking, talking films, like 4 of us, Everyone left, went to bed, woke up the next morning, and they met us there. And they were like, good morning. And we were still talking films and that kind of stuff. And from that point on, we kind of knew we had a bond and that kind of stuff. We wanted to do stuff. So it was quite easy when I came back. I was like, oh, by the way, that's the script. Like, okay, yeah, okay, and that was, so it's good. I mean, like I say, people don't realize how well schooled or well versed our actors are and our filmmakers are in Nollywood. I mean, you may see things that might think, oh, why did it? But I'm sure if you go to them toe-to-toe on films, the different French New Wave and all that sort of, they will floor you, you know. So yeah, so it was cool. And Ramsey, I always knew then that he was going to be a fantastic director as well. And I like working with talented actors. So I wouldn't say they're big actors. I mean, I go for talented actors, and just because they happen to have a crew for and people seem to appreciate them as much as I do, then that's cool. But for me, it's people who I always feel can really, really deliver, the character, make it very believable. That's the most important thing for me.
Okay. So is Waltbanger a name you came up with? Is it like a pen name, stage name, or something of that sort, or?
It merged. Initially, it was a play on words, Harvey Waltbanger, sort of thing. Well, that's the official story. I'm not. And then it kind of became an email that I had.
All right.
At the time, and it was just my email. It was just email it. And then one of my friends who was in advertising at the time, and when I tell you, I was like, he was quite a king at advertising. He did work with ABL Water, also the Jack Daniels, also, and he was like, "Whoa!" He's like, this Waltbanger name, very striking. I'm like, yeah, like, maybe you should use it. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, really use this. I'm like, really? And I'm like, okay. So when I set up my company, that's when I used. But then from having it on my emails, people started just calling me, hey, Waltbanger, sort of thing. And then, so in music videos, that's what I was, and it became sort of what I used to register my company as Waltbanger, based on what my good friend Steve told me. And that's kind of how it stuck. And then people actually thought it was my real name for a long time. Only because I registered on Facebook as that, because I didn't want. I'll give you a thing. Waltbanger, I kind of like being a personal, private person. So whenever, and I didn't want to get caught up in the whole film bit and be a celebrity, all that kind of stuff. No, I'm the kind of guy that go home, retire, I want to wear my vest and walk around, that kind of stuff. So it became sort of a. When I say Waltbanger, Waltbanger was this music video director. He had always wore dark glasses everywhere, in nightclubs and that kind of stuff. So, and then once I took the dark glasses, I was back to being Walter. And so it kind of, Walter the writer, the guy who's trying to, sort of thing. So it kind of gave me this sort of duality. I could sort of separate myself from the industry sort of thing. And when I went to register, social media and that kind of stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to really put my my real name. And Facebook had us split it, we couldn't do one name, but Waltbanger. And then everyone started, oh, Waltbanger. So it was after I kind of had my big success with Get Lucky, and they wanted to give me a credit. And I was like, yeah, but no one's gonna know that's me, Walter Taylaur. Everyone I've been working in the industry is not gonna know that's me. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Put Waltbanger in the middle of the tape, and they fought me tooth and nail. No, it's too clumsy. And I'm like, I don't care if it's too clumsy. That's kind of how I want my first major screen title, sort of an international screen title. I'm like, no, that's how my name goes. And then from there on, once I went into films and that kind of stuff properly, it's kind of stuck with me. So I'd always put it as a Waltbanger Taylaur. Obviously, and also my dad's never gonna feel. This guy doesn't love his father, though. But not using family name, thing. But I remember I had some aunties say, I'm like, no, it's not okay. You know what? There you go. Everyone takes it. So when you ask me, Waltbanger, I'm like, yo, whatever you. Whatever.
The first time I read Waltbanger, I was like, this makes for a good rapper name, because it's also got the word banger in it.
Well, a little secret. That's kind of where I really started. Really, when I was at university, was part of a rap group, and that was where the banger came from. That was where the email came from.
So not wrong.
No, you weren't wrong, exactly. In fact, it was even before banger became such a thing, and that's kind of, well-used term. And then it kind of also mirrored my filmmaking and writing, because then I was a lyricist, and you had to be very cryptic in your words. You know, the deeper your words were, the more of I can say dope MC you were. So if you said something and people couldn't work it out, they're like, oh, what is that? Sit down, work it out, like, oh, that's what you mean. Oh, and then you get the similars, and that's kind of how when I go into films, I still find those elements in it, because, like I said, Johnny Roger, there's three meanings to it. I'm like, okay, let's see if they can work it out. Don't say anything, let's see if they can work it out. And when they work it out, I'm like, yeah. So it's kind of, nothing's really staged out on face surface levels. There's always different levels, layers to it. And then if you do get it, like, oh, like for example, when I tell people, it's like Najite, Naj, she's a metaphor for Nigeria.
Oh, so that's the name. Yeah.
Like everyone, we're responsible for Nigeria's death or dying, and everyone's blaming each other, but it's all our responsibility for it. So, you know, she's dressed in green. You know, there's different, but that one is not something I stamp out there, but it's something I have in my mind to try and be consistent. So you have an example, the policeman, when he's asked, do you want to, you can either live, go and live, or you're going to die, and your children and wife and children live. It's kind of another metaphor for the way our political system is now, whereby people want to take what is now. They don't want to sacrifice for the future, or you know, take a stand. You know, let's do that. People want, you know. So there's these little things that it means something more than just what it is. But I'm not always going to explain it to you. If someone now comes and says, "Oh, what did you mean? You know, I got this from your film." You know, it's a bit like a piece of artwork. You know, you look at it, and you see different things in it, and if you can do that for me, that's what makes it a lot more meaningful to me, rather than saying, "Oh, I like your film. Oh, it's funny." You're like, it's only funny so that I can slip in all these subconscious things into your mind.
Interesting. So, all right. So, Walter, so from here, what do you think is the future of Nollywood? I'll start off with Nollywood, then I'll come to what you're up to. So, yeah, let's start with Nollywood.
Total world domination. And I'm not saying this as a joke. I really believe that Nollywood is going to take over. It's just
a matter of time.
Look what we're doing now. Look where we are now. You know, once things, you know, we don't even have a major studio. You know, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, we're getting there. So, and I look at Bollywood and they're like, oh, we have to, you know, because if we can get similar structure to it, then we're going to be going toe to toe. We're going to like, yeah. And then the idea of, you know, we get, and for me, I always say to people, why don't we look at Bollywood? We have so much more in common with them than Hollywood. And look at how they, you know, they can get, you know, the different in classes, the different in, you know, the way police brutality, the way things, you know, we have so much more in common, and the way that you have different languages, different tribes. So, and look how well they're doing. Look at look at the skill. So for me, I think that, okay, you know what, we have Bollywood in our crosshairs. Okay, you know what, leave Hollywood, leave them, like, and because that's where I feel that Bollywood can dominate totally. So I'm like, okay, we can be on that same trajectory too. So I'm very
optimistic,
serious, and optimistic and serious about it, about where we can go. As for me, who knows? We're just here for the ride. We want to tell more stories. I love being creative. So as long as I have the chance to be creative, as long as people respond to the films positively, the way they do, we'll continue to make films. So we'll continue to try and twist the little gray matter in their heads and try and make them enjoy it while we do it.
So anything you're working on right now, which you're at liberty to talk about, of course. Which you'd like to tell us?
Well, this is where I am. You caught me at a good point or a bad point. I'm now in the overthinking, procrastinating stage of production. I have sort of 5 projects that I can work on, and I'm trying to decide which one will be the first, which one will be the second, simply because I kind of like to be sort of ahead of the curve or on the curve. And you feel like if I make it now, it's going to come out for another year. By then, these kind of stories are going to come out. So I'm trying to, that's kind of where I'm predicting. I mean, I have, I'll give you an example. There's a story called Area Dogs, which I've been cooking for many years. I mean, I would have made it before I made Jolly Roger, but I got, the producer side of me got a rude awakening when I spoke to the powers that be. And they, we said, oh, if I make this, it's a sci-fi film or near futuristic sci-fi film set in Nigeria in 2041. So I had it all mapped out how we're going to make it. It's familiar but not too far fetched. But there's tech and it starts off basically with a voiceover, a bullet-ridden car, sort of like a tow truck driving a bullet-ridden car, and the radio saying, "Oh, that reminding people that the government's new route protocol, which is going to outlaw cash. So people have to just, 3 weeks to go before the deadline. Everyone needs to sort of cash in their money. And this is what's happening now."
Oh, interesting.
This is what happened. So I'm thinking to myself, well, I've been on this project for like 5 years. It was written before Kashyap. It was supposed to be before Kashyap, and then I'm like thinking, but then I was way ahead of the curve. Now I'm sort of like on the curve. Do I really want to do it? But everyone knows about. Everyone wants, or people I know. I'm saying, why did you make this film? We've been waiting for this for so long. I'm like, I would have made it last time, but they've told me that even if I make it like a James Bond film, I can only make X. They're not only going to buy it for X amount of money. I'm like, yeah. So where my investors are going to lose money? I'm just like, okay, you know what? Let me just put it under the shelf. But now the investors can make the money, but now I'm thinking, well, do I still make it now that everything is kind of caught up? And then, even in the news today, we've had this whole thing about sort of organ trafficking. Some guy got caught organ trafficking. That's kind of one of the subplots within the thing, which I had 5 years ago, whereby things that look like something ends up becoming, oh, wait a minute, we thought it was this. No, it's actually this. So I'm just like thinking, well, is it going to be more of a wow thing, or it's just like, okay, it's just what is going on now. So I have that. So, but I kind of want to make it, but I don't know if I'll push it on that. Then I have this will switch you off, a psychological thriller, kind of horror. It's kind of a horror psychological thriller. But I say psychological thriller because it sounds better and it sells better. Then, I've spoken to family, you make a horror film. No, don't make a horror film. Don't make a horror film. Oh, yeah, we like. So it's kind of, it's leaning towards the horror, but when I market it, it's going to be like a psychological thriller. It's basically about a journalist who basically does a story that debunks child witches and then goes back to the village to do a follow-up to the story. And then finds out that her earlier thoughts of what it was going on kind of goes out the window. So it's that kind of story as well. And then I have 2 more, which are based on books, which are options. So one's 2 books, and those ones I can't divvy up on those ones yet. But they are sort of grand projects. When I say grand projects, they're
scale
bigger than anything I've done. I already have the first book. I already have a UK production partner. And we're trying to, thrash it out. We've got the first draft. It's the pilot. It's what do you call it? Magical realism.
All right.
Sort of thing. But we're trying to make it a bit more of a thriller than just magical realism, and it takes place within sort of 3 different time periods. So you have the person is in UK. Sort of her mother dies, leaves her a diary, her great grandfather's diary, and a mask. And then you tell the story. When you now read the diary, you're now actually going back to the 1700s and actually seeing what's going on there. And then you have the mother's story when she's in the 70s in England, fighting sort of, this whole new immigration sort of thing. And so it's a very, very huge project, like I said, but it's something that landed on my desk, and I thought it was totally different. It's not film noir kind of stuff, but yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a great point in life where you have five things to choose from, what to start off with. Right? That's a good dilemma to have.
Well, I don't know because every day it's this one, and I'll open up the script and I'll start, and the next day I'm like, now this one's a stronger one. I mean, I have a script already written, and I'll go back to it. So yeah, you're right. It's rather to have five than not have anything you want to do. So yeah, I take that from that.
All right, Walter, was great having you. It was a great chat. So I wish you all the best. I'd like to thank you a lot for taking out time from your busy schedule, all the writing, all the assessments, everything you have to do, and for just chatting with me. And I wish you all the best with your upcoming projects, and here's to world domination.
Amen. Amen to that. Thank you very much for having me. And thanks for watching Nollywood. We really appreciate it. And the more people like you, the closer we are to world domination.